Hey guys, welcome Muskie Road Rules podcast and Patreon. Guys, I'm really excited to have everybody on this week, and I appreciate all the listeners and the members to the Patreon. Guys, if you haven't subscribed to the Patreon, it's real easy. Just go to patreon.com, and I want you to search Muskie Road Rules, and you're going to get a couple options there that you can choose to click on to subscribe. And the neat thing about it is not only do you get this video, but you also get the video, all the videos that we've done so far. So any video that we've ever done, you'll get access to. And there's a lot of really cool stuff, a lot of stuff we've shown, whether it be bait mods or how to set your boat up or what stuff actually looks like when you're out there on the water. So I want you to, seriously consider that. It's not very much. You're going to get 4 a month. And it works out. It works out really, really well. Today's podcast, I got a friend of mine from up in Northern Illinois on, Mr. Austin Wiggerman. Austin, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you? I'm doing a little bit better than yesterday when we tried getting together and doing this.
Yeah, this was for you guys a little backstory here. We've tried to do this now. This is our third attempt in locations. Austin's on Amish internet at his place and trying to get everything on and lined up. And a little behind the scenes here for this stuff when I film it is if the person doesn't have really good internet, you might have seen on some earlier videos, it gets a little digital. And when it does that, we try to move, we try a cell phone, we try all the different stuff. And so finally, Austin had to go to a buddy's house who doesn't have Amish internet, and he's able to come on here with us. So, Austin, give us a little story here of how you got into muskie fishing and what you do.
Well, first, I want to say thank you for having me on, Greg, and I big fan of you kind of getting this new platform kicked off and kind of going down this route. I think it's a great idea. I think it's something that a lot of people can find some deeper meaning, some more, engaging access to certain people and kind of, it's kind of a cool new space so far from what I know about it. And I'm glad to be here, but boy, getting into muskie fishing, I'd say that it's weird because nobody in my family is really a fisherman. Actually, I guess I should tell the story more along the lines of the guy's house, my buddy's house that I'm at. His dad is a dentist, owns his own dentistry. They have a family of 4 boys. My buddy here, whose house this is the third of the 4 boys. And we met in high school. One of my best friends growing up, whatever. And he was a part of kind of the original real good buddies that kind of all were just obsessed with fishing. So after high school, we'd jump in his Suburban. And we'd just hop from pond to pond, bass fishing, golf course ponds, etc. And his family always did a few Canadian fly-in trips every year, and so I joined them a couple of the years going to Pipestone, flying into Kanoji Lake, just like the one cabin on a 2.5-hour float plane over the border, stuff like that, and it was awesome. And then finally, me, Corbin, good buddy Brandon Jarva, and Dom Winnicky, that was, if anybody's seen or heard of Fish with Teeth Outdoors, it was kind of our group's, I guess, name for behind the scenes posting social pics and stuff for chasing muskies, right? And that group of us 4 kind of took our first quote unquote real muskie trip to Lake Vermilion way back in 2014. We were young and dumb and rented a boat and packed Corbin's dad's little U-Haul trailer they had with probably way too much alcohol and way too underage and had a freaking ball. And it was one of those first like out of state. We had caught some fish and did some, shore fishing around here, and muskies in Illinois, access to, large fish especially is not always the easiest, but to kind of fast forward, we did that trip to Lake Vermilion, and just the size class of fish and access to some wild fishing and wild scenery would just it certainly hit me harder than I think a little bit everybody else. Everybody else still loves muskies, but they didn't really kind of shape their life to be
Sure.
focused around it, as I know you know very well.
Oh yeah.
But I guess the cool full circle moment there would be we stayed at a Vermilion Dam Lodge. Ed Tausks, the owner, got to know their family really well. And actually, on our second trip there, which was 2015, for that same group of dudes, all my buddies, all four of us ended up coming home with our PBs. We all learned. We went up the opening week, essentially, a 1 week after opener, both of those years, 2014, 2015. And it was kind of when Luke was really getting dialed in on the open water bite out there. And 2014 was the year that we had spent the vast majority of our time going from bay to bay to bay to bay. And we'd every once in a while pass Luke in the middle of the lake with clients, and they'd just be throwing just ridiculous size rubber, and we're all looking at each other, just making fun of each other. Like, there's no way you're going to find me doing that, because we're seeing 50-inch fish chase our gliders, and like, we don't have access to it. We're not used to it. So we're like, we're not going to go in the middle of nowhere. We're going to just keep seeing all these fish. So I think that year we lost one 50-incher or so on a glider. And I think maybe we got 4 little tykes, but the next year we did the same exact pattern for the first 3 days, and we said, screw it, what do we got to lose? We talked to Luke, we talked to Ed. They kind of tossed us a few baits, and we went out in the middle of Head of Lakes with not a clue in the world, just driving with a rental boat, stopping in the middle of the basin and chasing Cisco's popping on the surface. And by 11 in the morning, we were back at the cabin, all 4 of us with our PBs, and all 4 of us with a few too many drinks in us, and that was that was a pretty good, well-rounded idea of how I fell in love with muskies, really got into it, and then also how just the out of the box Minnesota fishing basin stuff really seemed to truly shape how I went on and learned fisheries and dedicated time to finding big fish in the basins of everywhere I've tried. And I guess I should preface this now before we get too far, but that was obviously long before live imaging and scoping, and I still don't have any live imaging on my boat. But yeah, it was just the time of my life thinking back on it. But these fish they kind of hit me at a really good time in my life, just learning myself, going through college, just the important things. They teach you a lot of cool life lessons, just hard work, perseverance, and then also how big
failure
of an idiot you are. Yeah, how big of a failure. I always say you got to get good at failing or liking failing if you want to fish muskies, because it's something you do more often than not, it seems like. But it's a heck of a sport, and I think we've gone through waves in the industry, with weird stretches of, and I've only been, associated or around it for so long. You've been around it for 3-4 times as long as I have, and I'm sure seen everything under the sun.
It's called being old.
Yeah, but that's a good thing, I'm starting to realize that, if you ain't old, you're dead, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's something about, you talking about the playing in that open water and stuff, and there's something about coming in on something when it's new and kind of fresh, and not necessarily new in that, but it was kind of a different. It's nowhere near what it is now.
Yeah.
And seeing that, and I've been fortunate enough in my career I've watched a lot of new stuff. I've been involved in a lot of cool new patterns that, at the time was something new, or maybe it be a lake or a technique. And it's really cool to see it from its beginning. And, but it's also cool and important that you evolve with it, because nothing great lasts forever. And you gotta just evolve and work to make it, to figure out, okay, what's the next thing? What can I do to make this, to try to get back that lightning in a bottle type deal.
Yep. Exactly.
And that's kind of, that's kind of the, everything, whether it be life, whether it be fishing, whether it be whatever, you got to kind of, change is inevitable. And if you don't change,
the only
then
constant is change.
yes.
Yep. And if you don't change with the change or look for the next one, you're definitely going to be behind the ball for sure.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it's great, but frustrating.
Oh yeah. Because when you got it going, it's like, I hope this never stops, but it's gonna. And when it does, it's like, well, now I got to go and put in that time and effort and look for the next thing. But
no,
I think
get
that's
it.
half the fun of it for me, at least. If you don't enjoy that, it's going to be a tough road.
It's going to be it's going to be a very short road is what it's going to be. It's you're going to get frustrated. I remember back in 01, 02, 03 when you were 6. That's wonderful. I was just starting on Mille Lacs. I had met Jason Hammernick through the PMTT. We become friends. He brought me over there. I stayed with him and then just kind of, lived in various friends' ice houses for 2 years but got to see a fishery grow up and mature, and a lot of really nice fish turn into a lot of really big fish. And they were still very, uneducated. I don't know if uneducated is a good word, but unpressured. I use the word stupid, but they were fish that weren't used to being targeted, and we targeted them a bunch of different ways. And when it got tough, we were able to adjust and find the new ways that they wanted to bite. And I've always said that one is there's a fish biting every second of every day. You just have to find it. And there is also the whole idea of this doesn't work here. We don't do that here. And the one thing that I've learned, and this is something that tournaments have taught me really, really well, meeting people in the tournaments, is that, strategies work everywhere. I had on earlier in the podcast, I had Todd Young on, and when him and Dale Wiley started fishing the tournaments, they were coming from PA. There were very few teams in it from that area. Their short line or even speed trolling techniques were not really something that people had done anywhere in the Midwest. And they brought their techniques over, and they were, placing in tournaments. They were winning some tournaments and everything. And it really opened my eyes to it, and they both became very good friends of mine. And their techniques are still used by me today and produce wildly successful. My biggest fish.
Before I forget, I want to ask you about that too, because what were you fishing the PMTT when it was on the Fox chain and those guys wanted speed trolling
on Fox?
Fox or Grass Lake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were on Fox Lake. There's a big basin out there, and they caught 2 fish on Dale's. I think he caught them on head shakers, which was his kind of a newer bait at the time he was bringing out. More of a basically imagine a crankbait, a jointed crankbait with a shorter body up front and a longer body in the back that had like a real aggressive head shake to it. Mm-hmm. And Dale, there wasn't many fish caught in that tournament. It was kind of a tough tournament. But they got 2 bites, and that's what it took. They got both of them, and and I've seen them do it on leech. I've seen them do it on Minnetonka. I've seen them do it on a number of bodies of water. Particularly here at Cave Run, where I have called home and got started muskie fishing. My biggest fish ever on Cave Run is a 53-incher I caught on a 6-inch Wiley, trolling with Dale and Todd. Or trolling like what Dale had taught me. And Todd Young, when he was on, he had a reproduction mount of a fish behind him. And it was actually a fish that him and Dale had caught together, a 51-incher on Cave Run that Todd caught. And it just really opened my eyes to what the possibilities were for that technique in everywhere I've been. I mean, the one place I haven't used it a lot is Lake of the Woods, and that's a goal of mine this year, is to actually start playing around with that some, especially for, if you get clients that are getting tired of casting, or you're in a position where the fish are just not going on the traditional stuff, or you're not out there at the time when they should be. This last year on Lake of the Woods, there was a interesting pattern that was, we had so much hot, calm weather. It seemed like it was a really good early morning bite. The problem with that is if anybody here has ever fished Canada or Northwest Ontario during the summer, I mean, it's daylight 18 hours, 19 hours a day. And if you want to fish the low light periods, you almost have to pick, because it's hard to fish late into the evening and then get up at the, sleep 2 hours and then get back up in the morning. It's just hard for guys to do that. And mainly, guys are on vacation and it's hard to run that schedule. And I'm not blaming them or anything. I mean, it's just, that's a hard schedule to run. And I think in those situations, I should have, kind of dug into the bag of tricks a little more on some things. And I think that's stuff that I'm hoping to play around with some this year.
Well, I like the fact that you, for how long you've musky fished and guided, you still have things that you got goals to implement, because I know I lack the experience in trolling. I just do. And I've caught some fish doing it, don't get me wrong, and I don't do it as really a way to catch fish a lot of times. I do it a lot to either learn some new water, or if clients are tired,
eat lunch.
But this year it's a goal of mine that I want to implement it to grow the arsenal, grow the bag of tricks because I've always known, but I know it catches fish. I know it catches fish when, you're struggling casting, they're not responding to a stop and start bait, or you need to keep bait down in the right zone for a long enough time, things like that. Dirty water, like you experienced down south. I know Chase has talked to me a lot about that. When water's crazy dirty, it's time to troll, and that's how he produces. So things along those lines, where it's like it's refreshing to hear there's always things you gotta try and learn and continue to implement. But that's one of my goals for sure.
Yeah, and if you're not, trying that, you're really doing yourself a disservice.
Exactly.
In the fact that, there's always little things and tricks that you can do. And, for me, it was a big deal into getting that stuff done and being able to, how can I catch clients' fish, and what do I got to do? These fish are being super, super weird. And it's one of those weird deals. But yeah, that's just the way it goes. But let's jump in here to some of your stuff. You were talking about the open water stuff that you're doing. You sent me a video you labeled hardhead. And I will say, I don't want you to say anything at the beginning, because to me, this is one of the more impressive burps I have heard on video. We're going to bring this up here, and that was quite the burp. And
was it? I didn't even hear it.
But you're out here. It looks like you're just out. Are you fishing a basin here?
Yep. So it's a basin, neck down area that leads into a spawning zone. Water temps are about 40. I think it was actually April Fool's Day. And let's see. So essentially, this video went crazy viral for a while on Sims stuff and things, but the basis behind it really was, I've found a lot of times in the early season that right after ice out, first couple weeks, the fish that are associated with the basin, they just don't seem to come higher than halfway in the water column a lot. So you can see there the water temps are low 40s, and that was essentially what I saw on side imaging as I was about to finish that cast. But you can clearly see I did a couple figure eights there first, and it was midday. It was midday moon. I had driven it, side imaged a pack of 5 fish, suspended, and I knew that those fish, if they were going to respond and bite, was going to be during that midday moon there in that early season. But like I said, those early water temps with the fish out deeper, it's been very funny to me to watch how they just don't come up in the column. So I had no intention of this fish making it all the way to the surface and biting my bait because I just hadn't had a fish do that. And yet I wanted to stop the side imaging to make sure that I got a good picture of the side imaging. And so I had stopped it there, which this video still gives me the chills.
Yeah, you're just basically, figurating, hopping the hard head around,
And then the
doing.
second I take it and move it like a bucktail in the figure eight with a straight, smooth, calm figure eight and take my phone out to to go ahead and get a picture. And yeah, the worst part here
It
is
eats
that
it.
yeah, the whole bait was gone. And as we'll talk about some modification, I mean that's the bait, and it's not a little bait, but it makes it look pretty little.
Yeah.
But the worst part is I was looking at my phone obviously when it happened, and when it happened, I just felt like the babiest of ticks. And in my head, when I looked back, I didn't see the bait in the fish's mouth, so I thought it had missed it in my head. So for the remainder of that moon, I had fished. Yeah, I mean it was
Clearly
so fun.
gone.
Yeah, very gone. So in my head, I had fished the remainder of that moon with the thought that it had missed the bait, and I was going to catch it. And then I downloaded it, sent it to a buddy, continued to fish, but I didn't even look at it. And he goes, "Dang, that whole thing was gone." After I pulled up my phone like another hour later, and I'm like, "Huh?" And I'm like, so I really looked at it on my phone. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So the last 3 hours, I mean, not that it's impossible and not that it hasn't happened before, but that big of a fish and that pressured of water and when it bit was when it should have bit. But it certainly made me look like a little bit of a fool, and it's one that I would like to get back, no doubt. But
I'm sure.
it was it's hilarious to have on film, I guess. And
Oh yeah.
but
It's part of it. Let's see what that bait there that you were throwing, the hard head.
yeah, so I mean, this is kind. I mean, did you ever really get in the hard head phase back in the day?
No, I didn't. I've not had much stuff with those. No.
So I mean, what I really love about them, and this is the H2O tackle version. There's supposed to be a screw-in weight here as well, like I got in the midsection. But what I love about these, in comparison to like the newer versions, the Phantom, when they took over and started making them, the belly roll and wobble on these is insane. So every time you pull it, and obviously the adjustable weight system, you can kind of dictate if you want to fish it high, fish it super deep. But the belly roll on these is phenomenal, and it's one of those baits that I would kind of classify or correlate with like a dying dog, which I know you were a big part of that. And it's like one that just gets bites and seems like it just gets a big fish to eat it when they're in a lazy mood. It's not a bait that I would say I grab when they're going really good all the time, but it's certainly a phenomenal cold water bait. It has a lot of action, obviously, with the giant tail attachment, and the paws wobble is unbelievable. But I will say on the little modification that I make to it, so where these hook attachments are, number one, I've always kind of hated. This is what really far back, which on the body section, whatever. I would love if it was where the screw and weight section was, but what most baits do, and what I see a lot of guys do with a back hook on a rubber bait, they just take a hook point and stick it into the rubber. And I've never been a big fan of that. You're just kind of wasting a hook point at that rate. Well, I got this extra tail here, and I'll show you. But essentially, what I do with a lot of those back hooks or any rubber bait that I want to see. So
you can see it.
I go ahead and tee the hook, and then I throw some leader wire essentially down the shaft and end up sticking it perpendicular out, where on the bottom of that rubber bait, you can just take that wire, you stick it right through the whole bait, and it's just like it's an easy way to simply have that thing sit there. It detaches easily. It doesn't freaking rip out of the rubber bait. It doesn't kind of take away a hook point, and it's kind of minimally invasive with your rubber, because I know how quick you can go through rubber all the time, but it doesn't use a hook point, and I clearly I need all the hook points I possibly can on baits to keep them attached. But yeah, that's one of those baits that I think kind of got popular, obviously, way back when they really started, kind of being the reason that H2O ended up either selling them or however they had that figured out, getting them over to Phantom to have them more mass produced. But those original H2O versions, the wobble is just unbelievable. And obviously the adjustable weight system in any baits nowadays is just so versatile. So they make a couple sizes, but that big version is, and they make a bigger version too, which I've got one that I bought on Marketplace for Minnesota specifically. Haven't used it by all means, but it's a hog. But no, those baits are just one of those unique ones that you don't, the half hard, half soft, always have high hooking percentages. And it just seems like it's one of those that don't get used in a very saturated market of a lot of people using the same baits, and it's just got a few special qualities that seem to trigger those big and pressured fish or lazy fish. So it's a sweet bait, but that little modification with the back hook certainly makes a difference.
No, I like that. That's kind of I've not done that much, but I think I might steal that for a couple baits I have ideas for.
And even like guys I know, like when they're jigging bondies, they'll add a hook to the top. I would rather do that than stick a hook point in the top of the head. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a zillion baits that you can think of. Yeah.
And teeing it, that sticks those hook points out slightly further than the rubber. And I think that makes a big difference, especially in hookups. And it doesn't, and it gets that point back further, so that when a fish does come from behind, or let's say it swipes at it from and doesn't get the whole head of the bait, it allows you to have some hook points.
It's the same principle of like a sucker rig, you know. You're just minimally invasive, sticking it into the sucker. It's the same thing with the rubber. It's just, you know, holding it in the right place, and it's exposing all the hook points. So it's something I've done for a while. But and even you see a lot of blade attachments on the bottom of hook rigs nowadays, whether that be like the Hunzi tail concept out of the back of the bucktail or whatever. You can do that exact same principle with that kind of makeup, and instead of bending it to be out sideways on the hook, you just have whatever attachment you want out of the bottom. So turn it into a screw or whatever.
So have you tried that with swim baits?
Like having a swim bait. Exactly. Yep. Yeah. I throw a lot of the Wolf Creek swim baits with the external harnesses. I've always the external harness stuff to me is like a giant pain in the ass, but like it does seem like, one, I think the baits themselves have more lifelike action with the external harnesses, and it does seem like when you hook a fish, a million times better for just kind of playing them with a big bait attached to them.
Well, I tell you, we had a guy on the podcast a couple weeks ago. We're actually recording this in April, and I'm not sure when this one's going to go up. I think in May sometime, but it's a guy out of Pennsylvania. His name's Tom, and he makes a bait called a saddle tramp. Swim bait. By far the most action I've ever seen out of any swim bait I've ever used. And they're external harnesses. And I think that technique there, I'm actually, now that you've shown me that, I'm going to go try that this afternoon and see what it looks like in the water. But the action that thing has is just unbelievable. and you can rig it a bunch of different ways. So that's
And I guess while we're on that topic, this isn't something I didn't bring a shallow invader with, but I know like so you use the hook extensions on the so like for guys that throw a lot of invaders, which I love a shallow invader. You can basically not go wrong. But Stealth Tackle John makes those hook extensions that go off of the invader, and I genuinely have no idea how these are intended to be attached. I would assume it's split ring off the front hook through the back eye and then bent out. But what I do is I just take a little zip tie, and instead of having this wire bent through the back hook eye where you need it to be, I'll just zip tie this through the back hook eye. And a lot of times, one, you don't have to worry about now like perfectly bending your wire to have it whatever, but the zip tie, obviously you zip tie it nice and tight to that back hook eye, sticks out. But a lot of times when you do hook a fish, it breaks off and you have this like swinging external harness almost to that fish. So you go
with the zip tie, do you wrap it around the body of the bait, or do you just wrap it around that?
So it just goes through that bottom hook eye, and then this obviously the hook extender would. Let's see if so like if this was an invader, it would be coming from there, and then I would put the zip tie through this back hook eye.
Gotcha.
And over this as well.
Yeah.
So you don't have to have it all perfectly bent. And it, like I said, it almost literally acts as like an external harness. So I would assume that's how he had it intended to be rigged, was to have it like bent through the back hook eye. But instead of that, I just use those little zip ties, and it seems like it doesn't add too much weight or anything, crazy like that for lack of action to the bait. But it acts as like an external harness, hooks fish awesome, and it's kind of a much simpler, on the go, quick and easy attachment as opposed to trying to bend things around and stuff.
Zip ties not just for dating anymore. That's who knew? Who knew? We got on here. You sent me another video here. It's a rubber retrieve video.
Oh yeah. So I mean, let's see where I want to start with this in general.
We'll get it up here and have it start playing. It's you, and it looks like a buddy in the front of the boat.
Yeah, so we're on the Fox chain. It's April pre-spawn, and you can see I was off the other side as well. But right now I'm casting to a little inside turn, wind blowing in, and you can obviously have it play a few times. But it's funny when I really look at, because I try and film a lot. I've done less of it over the last few years, just with when I get on the water now, with how much I guide and stuff. I just want to enjoy fishing half the time. But when you really break down when you get bites, or what triggers these fish to bite, this obviously April, it's morning, you got perfect wind into a little good spot, but low gear ratio rubber, the double tap, and it's all just about the change in your retrieve, just consistent rips, and then the double tap long pause is where I get bit on so many of my baits, whether it be a rubber bait, whether it be a jerk bait, whether it be glider fishing. You have that constant within your retrieve where that bait's doing something consistently, and understanding what is the trigger of all of your different types of baits. What's the cue to get those fish to go from following it, watching it, to flipping the switch and biting? And it's a subtle thing, but that little double tap and little bit longer of a pause, that bite right there will be in my head forever. It was one of those that just, you're slowly reeling back up and you just feel the tick, and like it felt like an eternity before you set the hook. I was just like, I am gonna absolutely lay pipe on this thing.
Yep.
It was I think it was 1 of 3 that morning, and it's But again, that was kind of where I was also going to go with that. Obviously this is going to come out later than when we're talking, but right now we're pretty heavy in the pre-spawn phase here. I don't know. Are you guys fish spawning already? By the way.
Yeah, they're done. I think.
Yeah, that's what I've kind of heard.
They're pretty much done. I mean, I talked to Chad Harmon up in Ohio, and he said that 90% their DNR did netting, and 90% of their fish were done spawning already. So if they're done up there, we're done down here. Caught a few that have got some marks on them. So yeah, I think we're on the backside of it.
That's pretty wild. Our fish are goofy. People ask me all the time, are they spawning? When do they stop spawning? When do they start? And I'm like, I swear, the first like 60-degree day in spring, around us, there'll be fish that start spawning, and then they're spawning all the way through June. It feels like it doesn't matter water temps, nothing. You can kind of find somewhere on the chain that fish are paired up. But that specific video. Is me and Sam Stone. We did a lot of that. Was back when I was living in Wisconsin, pre-guiding. We were doing a lot of trips driving down from Wausau, Wisconsin, and we spent a lot of our time in the basin, targeting those kind of deeper suspended fish with bait. Obviously, a lot of times in the pre-spawn, those are some of your larger fish on average, females, things like that. And over the years, I've definitely come to realize, and this was certainly something that I wanted to talk to you more about as well, but guiding and fun fishing for me during the pre-spawn phase has been widely different and eye-opening, because for the first, I would say for sure 2 years, but maybe 3, I didn't catch a single fish in the month of April on a bait smaller than 10 inches. I just didn't. But what I came to realize when I did start guiding full time, and one, not always having clientele that is able to use that sized bait or efficiently throw a big rubber bait, or do it for long periods of time in general. It's not a numbers game that time of year, but that was more my choice. But what I learned was, it seems like, at least on my water, a lot of the pre-spawn fishing bait size is very closely related to the depth that you're fishing. Like, you can't go big enough,
sure,
if you're fishing the basin, but it seems like 1,000,000% the second you get up on top of the flats, in shallow water, in back bays, in channels, you're just going to get outfished by a guy that's throwing a 5-inch, 4-inch, bait all day long. So, like that scenario, obviously 10-inch, I think it was 10-inch too, but it might have been a 14-inch twisted tube. Oh no. Can you hear me still?
I can hear you. I lost visual.
Yeah, but I wonder if it'll come back.
Can
I wonder if I should click anything.
Just adjust the screen there, like you said before. Oh, you got kicked off. Austin got kicked off there for a second. Let me bring him back up. All right, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can.
Well,
I can.
This is what we may never get video back.
Well, I tell you what, let's just talk here. I'm going to I'll bring up this glider fish. You were talking about the shallow water stuff.
Yep.
So I'm going to bring up this glider fish that you guys are. I'm playing the audio here.
Awesome. Yep. And so this is actually a really cool experience, or cool scenario.
This definitely, the music you're listening to is not Tanya Tucker.
No, this would be kind of some hood dance music that gets us hyped to glide baits, I guess, maybe. But you can kind of tell in that video itself where his bait had landed. There's like a mud line almost. And really the big key behind this fish was also the retrieve. But where that fish specifically came from was, during the day, there had been a dock boat essentially that was like powering against shore through that whole area. like pushing the dock boat against shore to keep it solid while they were putting these docks in. And what it ended up really creating was this like very obvious mud line.
Mm-hmm.
And where that big fish set up and where it came from was perfectly off of that dark water to clear water scenario. And you can tell his Dom's retrieve is just very that was the long pause that fish missed on originally, and one more glide and end up getting it. But those retrieve triggers to each bait is just huge. And then just obviously, I think every angler can be more aware of their surroundings and what's going on the water every day, just to whether that be a slight wind switch, that might open a window, or clouds moving in and out, or a dock boat creating this, very obvious mud line that
Mm-hmm.
if you weren't thinking, you weren't aware, you weren't, trying to put the puzzle pieces together, whether that be I realized that was happening during his cast or not. I knew that mud line existed throughout the day and kind of was created. And it was something that those fish started to stack up on that as that boat had left. So
Sure.
it was one of those cool experiences. But yeah, and that again, from that first video to the second to this one is kind of our classic progression of spring. I think their water temps were probably, I'm going to say 52, 50.
Mm-hmm.
And that rubber tube video is probably 46, 47, and that first video obviously was 41 or whatever it was in that screenshot. But the progression of those bigger female fish, the kind of mass population of fish structure wise, where they're moving, where they're held at. That day's obviously a sunny day. That fish definitely slid up on top of the edge and in the back of this a little bit. But all those types of things are just the things that obviously I enjoy. But yeah, the retrieve triggers and just being aware on the water is just one of those things that I attribute to at least a good handful of more fish that I catch a year, just because I'm looking for those things as opposed to just casting.
Yeah, and the other thing too, you were going back just a second. You were talking about in the basin, you couldn't go too big to get a
Mm-hmm.
bite, and then up shallow, it was more the smaller baits. Do you think that early in the season comes down to just being that you're fishing deeper water and the bigger bait provides a bigger target and bigger ruckus um,
Absolutely.
for those
Absolutely.
fish, and in shallow water, you don't need that huge target. The fish can find a smaller bait easier.
I think that's 100%. I mean, it's the same deal to me in my head of like when I'm fishing Minnesota, right? And it's August, and you get a day that they're on the deep weed lines, and I'm like, well, a detonator or supermodel seems to get the vast majority of attention while those fish are set up and staged on some of the deeper structure. Yet you go up shallow and absolutely burning the lights out of a showgirl is how you get the majority of the fish, things like that. But I think 100%. I also think that there's a stigma, that a lot of people kind of attribute to early season spring fishing, small baits,
Yeah.
and they're not wrong. I think a lot of that came from kind of the areas of musky fishing that have, seasons per se, where they open up and a lot of those fish are, in near or post spawn and they're shallow, and
Mm-hmm.
they say the bait fish are small and whatever. But in our scenarios and a lot of these southern fisheries, when the ice goes out, I mean, the vast majority of life that's still alive from the year prior are large shad, is what a lot of these fish are targeting, especially in the basin area. So, and we have some disgustingly large shad, like
Yeah.
bigger plates, So it's like
Yeah.
when these fish are, in the basin and around these schools, they're not really chasing minnow schools that
Mm-hmm.
time of year in the basin. They're around the 10 to 14-inch shad schools and drum and carp and things like that. So it's like, uh, like you said, the water displacement and just the water volume that these fish are in, certainly the bigger baits seem to draw their attention better. And
Sure.
obviously the smaller baits, just do almost probably the same ratioed, presence in shallow water just because there's less volume around them.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, Austin, I'm going to bring up here you're a new project for you. I'm assuming it's a new project.
Yeah.
You're the rod organizer.
Yep.
I have a picture of it here. It's one of the 4 rod deals. I know you have a 6 rod as well. I just got mine yesterday, and my second one.
Yep.
The front one I have on the front of the boat, and I got to tell you, I absolutely love it. I think it's going to be something I'm really going to like. The only thing I'm worried about is backing into the boat shed and getting too close on the one side and having a lot shorter rods.
Well, I've been there and done that.
Yeah. So why don't you tell guys about this?
So, I mean, I've over the years had like Walmart rod rack, kind of Rapala foam plastic versions of this idea on my boat, screwed to a piece of wood, screwed to a ram mount. And I've had, there's a lot of guys that have seen it in the back of photos and things. It's not really, it was never my idea. I've got it from Andy Grimm, Northern Wisconsin. I think he got it from somebody who got it from somebody, right? Mm-hmm. And it's been a venture that I've kind of put off for so many years. You know, I went from living in Wisconsin to moving back to guide full time, to then when you guide full time, you realize that you don't have the income that you did when you had a nice steady paying job, and
oh yes,
buy less baits and have less extra cash to do all of these business ventures that you've kind of chalked up to I'll do it later down the road type of things. But finally, situation kind of came about where I had talked to a guy about manufacturing them a couple of years prior. He reached back out saying he's got extra material, which is what those wave rod holders are made out of, the base hard plastic. And I said, screw it. I think it's time, because I've had too many people kind of become aware of it. I see it too often on random people's boats of basically the old version that I had made up. And I said, screw it. So I hard launched about 65, 70 of them and drove up to the Minnesota show this year. And the response was awesome. Started the awareness thing, and obviously Wave Products, wavproducts.com. It's been a pretty cool response. One from a lot of the guys like yourselves that I've gotten a few to early right out of the gates from the Minnesota show, but also just the socials growing. The very, I wouldn't say there was a problem. It's like everybody talks about good business ideas fix somebody's problems. I wouldn't say that there was necessarily a problem, but I will say that I don't even remember what it was like, what I did with all my rods in the boat, before having, these. Is like, I just remember tangled lines and scratched and dented rods and things like that. And it's like, nowadays, everything's so expensive. Your time's so valuable while you're on the water. And like you said, that's the 4 version in the photo. There's a 6 version as well that we offer, and there's going to be a few more variations and some aftermarket things that we're going to be working on for down the road. I guess everybody that looks at them and asks about them always says, is there a strap? And I know that was one of the things that you talked about as well. I will say that the prototype version back in the day that I was using, the Rapala version, it was a straight up and down opening for the rod tip to kind of lay in. And those had the kind of habit that they would definitely bounce out in really harsh water, big water scenarios, but they obviously they wouldn't go far. But I can tell you that these angled versions are a heck of a lot different. It's almost, I'm still getting used to it. It's almost a pain in the ass getting them out of there sometimes, because the way that they lock in and the angle that we kind of put into the design, they don't bounce straight out. grip, the 3 millimeter sticky padding that we put inside of each insert really protects them and kind of adds a little bit of grip on the rod tip laying in there. But it is it's been a fun venture. It's something that I've put off, as I said, for years now, and it's something I'm excited to kind of continue to grow. But the aftermarket attachment strap is in the works now. I think that just adds a sense of security for most people that don't have the experience that I have in using it and driving down the road with them in there and using them on big water. So totally understandable. But it's a pretty cool thing, and it's I've been already cool seeing guys send in pictures using them on Green Bay, walleye fishing and things like that. So yeah, I mean, for anybody that's had issues or doesn't know what to do with their rods, it's cool. These are pretty much designed to be used off of a size C ram ball and ram arm, and the customization and how you integrate them in your boat or truck or garage, wherever you want to use them, is obviously endless. So it's been a pretty cool venture, and certainly exciting and nice to finally make the decision and kind of take the jump like I did with guiding. But just another step in the process, and been a cool response so far. So looking forward to the continued growth of it and see where things end up. But yeah,
well,
very proud of it.
Well, for me, what I liked about it is, in the spring where we're casting, trolling, all the options there, I always had my rods laying on the side of the boat in just a pile. And it was just always a disaster trying to get, okay, let's do some trolling. And we go to set up, and I'm like, okay, let's take 10 minutes to try to figure out where the rods are in this. And so I got two, and the reason I got two is I got my casting rods up front, and then I want one for the back to kind of lay my trolling rods in. That way, when we do go to troll, all the rods are out. I'm clean. I've got nice clean sides, and it works really, really well.
That is exactly how I went down south for a little fun trip this year to Kincaid, and Scott Donovan down there, who runs Shawnee Muskie Adventures. That's exactly how he has his setup now. That's exactly literally the exact scenario. He's like, I when I want to jump back and forth between casting and trolling, it's just always been a pain. And he said, I'm going to lay all my trolling rods out of the back, ready in the rod holder, which he's got now, and he's got this casting ones up front, and he's I know he's loving it. So that's certainly an idea I'm sure a lot of people will have.
Yeah, I'm installing my back one today, and it'll be I think it's going to be good. In my head, it sounds like it's going to work out good. And I think it will, and I think it's going to be a great improvement. And I've got your guys that are watching, I've got the website going at the bottom of the screen, wavproducts.com. Make sure you guys check that out. Austin, how can somebody get a hold of you if they want to go fishing?
I would say easiest way is always just call me, text me. My phone number is 815-575-3468. Certainly have a good amount of openings still with the guide schedule. Trying to pack that in as much as possible, but I guide Northern Illinois, as you've mentioned, Fox Chain mostly. That's kind of my focus through mid-May. Then I jump to Southern Wisconsin, Lake Geneva, and I know I meant to say this earlier, but it's reminding me now. You talking about watching a fishery grow, and kind of being at the forefront of dumb fish, but big fish growing, and seeing the special possibility of Mille Lacs. Well, I know Geneva has been a fun venture for me. It's pretty impressive the size fish that Geneva's putting out already, and the growth, and watching these size classes just get bigger and bigger every year, and the health of that fishery. So I also guide Southern Wisconsin, Lake Geneva for pretty much the rest of the year from late May on. And then I spend a month out in Detroit Lakes area, Pelican, Miltona area from August 10th through September 10th. So all those areas, I'm like you, I kind of bounce around and find my areas. And I had to find a way to sneak in spending some time in Minnesota, because I love that place for chasing muskies. But down south's got their uniqueness and funness to it. But yeah, 815-575-3468. And then any socials, you can find my name and get a hold of me.
All right. Well, I tell you what, Austin, I really appreciate you coming on. Wish the video worked the whole time.
Well, you don't need to see my face. We're more looking at you anyway.
Oh yeah. They're wondering why Jane Lynch is wearing headphones talking to someone about fishing. That's exactly what everybody's wondering. But I really appreciate it. We'll get you back on here sometime, and we'll get you some better Amish internet. And so
Absolutely.
I do appreciate it, and I want you to hang on for me for just a little bit, okay?
Sounds